Welcome to my latest video, and today we're going to talk about 5, in my opinion, underrated corals that you can keep in a nano. Let's kick off our look at the first coral, which is a Favia. This is a Christmas tree Favia. Now, Favias are easy to look after. This one is being surrounded with sunny D's, but it's growing out really well. And in a previous tank, I grew it from one polyp right to the size of a massive egg shape. They can sting other corals, but I haven't found that this one stings. And actually, as you can see, it's really close to the torch, and it hasn't been stung at all. This one is obviously green, but online you can get such a variety of different Favias. From what you see online, what people do say is they can be a bit stingy, so just be careful if you get one. Lighting requirements, I find they do really well on sandbed, but also this one is fairly high up in this and right under the radiant lights. In fact, it's directly underneath, although that is a Gen 3, so it's not as powerful as, say, the latest Gen 6, but it does really well. Flow requirements, it doesn't need that much flow. As you can see, it's surrounded by coral, so it's probably not getting much flow in there, but also it does well in high flow as well, I found. So it's a variety, very forgiving coral in terms of parameters, and if you have swings in alkalinity, and it also does well in fairly high nutrients. This tank, the nutrients of phosphate of 0.1 and the nitrates are about 25 to 30, so it's fairly high, but the corals in this tank seem to love it. The next coral is Alveopora. So this one is quite often overlooked for Goniopora, and in a way you can see why, because look at the coloration on that, it's pinky, and Alveopora tend to be not as bright colours. As you can see there, quite a few of them are green. But they are slightly different because their tentacles and the polyps at the end of them are far bigger, a more flower pot, you would argue, than a Goniopora. And also they're easier to look after. So Goniopora really, only in recent years, have we been able to master how we look after them. But Alveopora, I would say, are really easy. They don't mind high flow. You can have more of a swing in parameters. And I find they're not so reliant on things like manganese as Goniopora are. And this particular one was in another tank, in a far bigger tank. It fell onto the sandbed from the floating aquascape, and it sat inside for about 3 or 4 days when it was away, and it was as good as gold. Well, I think the Goniopora may not have fared so well. This one is fairly low down in the tank, so I would say bottom quarter. Haven't really had them that high up in the tank, but I'm sure they'll probably be okay. And as you can see, they can take quite a bit of flow. The power head is only there, and that's fine. In fact, I find when the flow's slightly higher, the tentacles expand a lot more, or extend a lot more, as you can see there. So I would say I would keep that into that kind of flow, not being battered, but likewise, it's not a gentle flow. That's moving around quite a bit. So that is the Alveopora. The next one on my list is Cythastrea. Now this one is quite hard to pick out. It's only been in a tank for about 6 weeks, in another tank before that. So it's only really just colouring up. So this is a branching. Usually they're more basing out ones, and I'll show you another one in a moment. But this one is quite an unusual one, and you can get all kinds of different colours with them. And what I like about these is they're usually slightly lower light. The flow in this part of the tank is not that great, as you can see. It's near the Duncans, so this is probably one where there's a lower flow. But it's doing pretty well. It hasn't started growing out yet, but it was growing out in another tank. But it's colouring up, which is always a good sign. They come in loads of different colours, and as you can see on these particular websites, there's a far greater range of colour than I certainly have in my tanks. And they are, as I say, they're easy to look after, very underrated coral, and you would say not as popular as some other types. Here's another one I have in a slightly bigger tank, but still a small tank, and it's probably about 1/3 of the way up the tank, as you can see. And as I say, they like lower light, they seem to thrive in. This one's doing pretty well. It's not growing as quickly as I'd like, but that's if you look at it, you've got sunny D zoas around it. So they do need some space, but I don't find so far that they've stung, but nice polyp extension on that. So I'm probably gonna have to frag back the sunny Ds. But as you can see from that one and this one, and also the ones we've seen online, there's a big variety of different types. It's a case of getting to your LFS or looking online to see who sells them. But that's something slightly unusual to the norm. Up next, for me, is one of my favourite corals, and that's the Chalice. So I've had a number of Chalices over the years, and this Nano tank has got a few in it as well. So that one there is a rainbow Chalice, and I've had that for quite a while. It got stung, you can see, just there, and it's healing up. That's why you got the lighter green there. But you know, variety of different colours. If I then come round here, we've got a watermelon coral, watermelon there. The colours don't really pop because we're under blue at the moment, but that's coloured up quite nicely. You have a super Space Invader one there, and look at the pop on that. It's an absolutely superb. I find with Chalice, keep them in lower light. So as you can see, that's in the lower parts of the tank. If they're in too high light, then actually they start to pale out. So they start to lose some of their colour. So I'm sure if I put the Chalice up there, they would probably struggle. In terms of flow, what I say, they can do well in lower flow. So that one's in low flow, and that one's in slightly higher flow, as you can see next to the Alveopora. The minimum requirements really are enough flow that just keeps the detritus off them, because what they quite often do, they'll grow into this kind of bowl shape, and in the middle there, if there's not enough flow, you'll either get detritus being captured in there, or you can get some sand. If it's right near the sand bed, then you start getting some die-off. So as long as you've got sufficient flow to take detritus away and also sand away, they'll do fine. They come in a range of prices. The rainbow Chalice are usually the most expensive, I would say, because they're the rarest, because they grow really, really slowly. Whereas something like an Avatar Chalice that I've had in this tank previously, and other tanks, they grow really, really quickly, and hence a cheaper price. And here's a couple of others in a slightly bigger tank. You've got the Raja Rampage there, and then you've got a rainbow Chalice there. And then if I move around over to here, you've then got a lovely blue one there. It's got a bit of die-off in the corner there because that mushroom is stinging them. So with Chalice, they can sting other corals, but then there's certain sets of corals, such as mushrooms, that will just sting them straight away. And you get all kinds of shapes and sizes. There's an alien eye one there, so that's purple with pink eyes. And then there's a green one, another green, just next to it there. So they come in varieties of shapes and sizes. And if you put them on a frag plug, then they'll grow up like a mushroom. And if you put them on the sand bed, then they tend to plate. But I would just say, just be careful about keeping a distance with others so that they don't get stung. On occasions, they sting others. And they are, when you put them next to one another, they will definitely sting one another, and they would easily kill one another as well. So just be careful on that. But they're fairly cheap, easy to look after. I'd say, as you see here, they're all in low lighting and fairly low flow, although it doesn't really matter too much on the flow, I find. So coming in at number 5 is the Duncan coral. So this is a really, really easy one to look after. This coral I've had since probably one of my original tanks, about 9 years. I've got 2 in total, this one and another one in another tank. And it's so easy to look after. Does well. This is in low flow and fairly low light, because it's quite low down in the tank, as you can see. And it's just got enough flow for it to gently move. And those polyps are really expanded. They're really easy to frag. As I say, I've had for years, and it's been fragged a number of times. And they're easy to pick up as well, and fairly cheap. So they look pretty good, and they grow out. They don't sting any other corals, which is a bonus. don't need any feeding. And what they do, when they sulk, that's usually quite a good indicator of something's up with the tank. This is my other Duncan coral. It's in a slightly bigger tank. So they do well in both a large tank and a small tank. This one's on the sand bed, and it's getting a little bit more flow, but it can take a lot more flow than it's actually getting. This tank goes through quite a bit of a cycle. It is quite low down, as you can see. But I have kept Duncans high up in a tank in one of my older tanks as well. So they're good in high, low flow, high, low light, and in high parameters as well, in terms of nutrients being high and also being low. But I wouldn't say too low, because of an LPS. They do prefer quite a bit more nutrients in the water for them to feed. Well, that's the end of the top 5 underrated corals in a nano tank. If you've liked this video, then give it a thumbs up and maybe subscribe to see future videos. But for now, thanks for watching.